I wanted to take today not to just speak about the news of the day, but about something deeper about our democracy. Obviously very disappointing that Pam Bondi didn't come today, and we're going to be working to make sure in a bipartisan way that her deposition gets rescheduled or she will be held in contempt, and we have the votes to do that. But I want to speak more broadly about what the Epstein class means for our democracy and what the way forward is. We meet at a time of crisis in self-government. Cynicism and even nihilism has taken hold of many corners of our nation. People are losing faith in liberal democracy itself in terms of having the ability to deliver. 70 years ago, John F. Kennedy declared that an American president shouldn't mindlessly follow the Pope. Today, Donald Trump is mindlessly bickering with the Pope, choosing hate over humanity, war over peace. How far have we fallen? Meanwhile, the American dream is out of reach for most of our citizens. 70% say they no longer believe in the American dream. Powerful economic forces of globalization and automation seem beyond their control, shaping their destinies while struggles go unnoticed. More troubling, perhaps most troubling, there is growing doubt about whether our nation can have a common national purpose again. Americans simply do not trust government because they see it captured by big money and by the powerful. They see the impunity of people like Pam Bondi not showing up even when Congress subpoenas them. And nothing encapsulates this sense of injustice more than what I call the Epstein class. This is a group of elites who operate outside the law. When people see powerful men abusing and trafficking young girls without consequence, it shakes something fundamental. They have seen the callousness, immaturity, hedonism, venality, rootlessness, and immorality of our governing class. People who chose being part of a network instead of speaking up against the abuse of young girls. And many are asking themselves, if these elite can get away with that, what can't they get away with? They see elite indifference and impunity has led to wealth piling up in the hands of a few in a few places, while the vast majority of this country has faced stagnation and struggling for economic security. Workers and communities have been treated as dispensable, just like these young girls were in the Epstein matter. Fortunes have been built on a foundation of offshoring jobs, automating plants, liquidating companies, buying back stock, and of course harvesting all of our data. Consider this, 19 billionaires hold over $3 trillion in wealth, 12.5% of our entire economy. This is 3 times the concentration of the Gilded Age, where we had Rockefeller, Vanderbilt, Morgan, and Carnegie. We are in a new Gilded Age. The question is no longer, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? For many, it's, are you better off than you were 4 weeks ago? Decades ago, like scholars like William Julius Wilson warned about black job loss hollowing out our inner cities in places like Philadelphia and Milwaukee. Too few listened. Later, economists like Ann Case and Agnes Deaton showed how economic despair was spreading in white working-class communities. We still did not act. Well, now the concern has hit the professional class. I was just up at Brown University, and I asked how many of the folks there are concerned about getting a job in the future. Almost all the hands went up. Even Ivy Leaguers and their parents are concerned. A society fearing its future is a society that is in decline. We do not need to be a nation in fear. So where do we go from here? We cannot go back to the days before Trump. That led to a Democratic Party that had an approval rating of 27%. How and why should we go back to a party or a politics that got us 2 terms of Donald Trump? We cannot simply resort to incrementalism or this fashionable nudges of a broken system. There was a paper written about let's just nudge things in the government. It was heralded as some great academic insight. The era of nudges and incrementalism are over. We need a new generation of leadership, and we need bold, ambitious legislation, the most bold and ambitious programmatic agenda of a generation. I call it a new economic patriotism. I am for Team America. This is a comprehensive new economic vision, a new deal for this era, a freedom budget for this century, a combination of what FDR proposed and Bayard Rustin proposed for our time. Not extractive capitalism, but patriotic, productive, free enterprise that leaves no community behind. When Europe was devastated after World War II, George C. Marshall developed a plan for reindustrialization of Europe. Well, today we need a 21st century Marshall Plan for the middle class and working class of America, mobilizing business, workers, universities, and government to rebuild struggling communities and address our economic divide. Here's what that means. First, it means jobs. And if the president wants to tweet out on Truth Social like he did with Warren, this is what I want him to focus on. We need a Work for America program modeled on the Works Progress Administration that created over 8.5 million jobs under the Roosevelt administration. Here's how it would work. Every young person out of high school or college would have the chance to do work that is deeply meaningful, rebuilding communities, providing care services, working on national technology projects, making government agencies user-friendly, training in industries of the future. You'd get a job right after high school or college, and it would be for a few years. Young people could work in their own communities, or they could work in a community far away from where they grew up, building bonds of social cohesion that have been missing in our country. After a few years of service, they would build real-world skills that translate directly into strong private sector careers. It becomes a civic equivalent of military service, highly valued by employers and a proven pathway to opportunity. Second, we need investment. We will create a historic national industrial bank to invest in critical technologies that will define the future: semiconductors, rare earths, advanced manufacturing, key starting materials for drugs, medical innovation, modern steel, robotics, shipbuilding, and more. And it will meet the test of the private sector with critical investment from the federal government in deindustrialized areas like Johnstown, like Lorain, Ohio, like Milwaukee. This isn't invoking distant memory. You don't have to go all the way back to Bill Knudsen and FDR. We did it recently with the CHIPS Act that I helped write a few years ago. Now we must do it for other critical technologies across this country. Third, we need to make the care economy a national priority. Child care, elder care, home care are not just services. They are the backbone of a humane society. And they also happen to be good-paying jobs that AI can't do or that can't be outsourced. These could be the backbone of jobs in many communities that are struggling and deindustrialized. Fourth, we need to make sure America has modern skills for the economy of the future. We need to form a nationwide system of trade schools and tech institutes in this country. That means 1,000 new trade schools for jobs of HVAC technicians, electricians, cosmetologists, drone operators, robotic technicians. Young tradespeople there will learn how to use technology and AI to do their crafts. And tech institutes across HBCUs and public universities in this country. We did this with the TechWise program that I launched with Google, NVIDIA, and Zoom. We provided 9-month courses, $5,000 scholarships, 10 hours a week, leading to $75,000 to $100,000 jobs in rural Iowa, in South Carolina, in central Pennsylvania. We need to scale that across this country. We need people who are going to be helping the next generation get the jobs of the future while being able to stay in their communities. Fifth, we must give workers ownership. AI creates a capital-biased world with exaggerated returns to shareholders. 1/3 of the nation's wealth originates in my district, $20 trillion in my district, $70 trillion stock market. Well, paying workers a living wage is necessary, but it's not enough. They must share in the company's profits, either through stock or defined benefits. If workers are the most productive ever, they they must be compensated to match that and have shorter work weeks, time off, and actual compensation in the profits of the AI economy. Good jobs and worker ownerships is a starting point, but in the richest nation in history, no American should be worrying about the basic necessities of life. This was basically the freedom budget. That is why we need an economic bill of rights for our time. The moment has finally come for national health insurance. Why? Because people now realize you cannot have health care linked to your job, not at a time where your job may change or where you may lose your job. We need Medicare for all. That's a better system with better outcomes where health care is guaranteed to every single person from the day they are born. For our young people, to assure career opportunity is not limited by your family's wealth. We need free college and free trade schools. Let me be very clear. We could pay for all of free college and free trade schools in America, 1,000 new trade schools, for the time that we have been in Iran. And I'm tired of senators in my own party saying, well, we got to read the president's budget before we know that it is wrong to have a $1.5 trillion Pentagon budget. What do they want to read? How much defense pork is going to come to their state? How much defense pork is going to come to their district? Let me tell you, I don't need to read that. We need to be no, absolutely no, because that money is not helping the American people. We need a Democratic Party that is actually going to stand for investment in our communities and not for a bloated defense budget and wars overseas. We also need, of course, a housing plan to build more housing, cap rents, and assist first-time home buyers with $50,000 for their down payment, money that we could get if we weren't spending on wars and a bloated Pentagon budget. And we need child care at $10 a day. We had universal child care with the 3,000 war nurseries when Roosevelt was president. We can have universal child care, $10 a day, paying child care workers $25 in 2026. How do we pay for all of this? We need to make different choices. Cut the wasteful spending, vote no on this bloated Pentagon budget, consider that every bomb we drop overseas is a student who does not get a scholarship, a rural hospital that is not staying open, child care and parents who are not able to get child care. I've got to admit, I basically borrowed that, in my own words, from Dwight Eisenhower's Cross the Farm speech, what John Nichols sent to me. But you could read that whole speech today, be relevant today, that we should be spending in our communities, in America, for child care, health care, housing, and our jobs, instead of the Pentagon bloat that we have, which is basically getting us into war without helping Americans. Let me close with a few thoughts. I'm not calling for bloated government. I'm calling for dynamic government, working with the private sector, protecting workers, driving innovation, generating results, not waste. Remember, it was American taxpayer-funded technology that helped create the current markets in my district that have generated so much wealth. 1969, it was NSF that funded the internet from UCLA to Stanford. It was Dartmouth and Stanford and MIT in the 50s and 60s that developed AI, developed GPS, developed the mouse. That was all government-led funding. So I'm tired of people saying that government is bureaucratic and inefficient. We need smart, dynamic government. And I say to those who have done well, if America has been good to you, then you must do good for America. That is why we need a billionaire's tax. That is why we need people who have done so well in this country because of taxpayer investments to give so that we can have jobs and economic security for everyone. It is patriotic to pay our fair share. This is not anti-business. It is pro-America. I'm passionate about this new economic vision because I've seen what this country can be. I grew up in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. My neighbors were electricians, nurses, teachers, HVAC technicians, doctors. You know, there was a pool at the end of the street. We knew that the kid's dad had a job as a hotshot at some big corporation. We all went to that house to hang out and be in the pool, but we played street hockey together, collected baseball cards together, saw Rocky movies together. And we came here, my parents came here believing in America. We were a nation brimming with confidence. Kennedy had called for us to go to the moon. This country was on the move with energy, preeminence in science. I went to public school. I had coaches who believed in me even though I could not hit. They said, Roe hits, he goes, plays ninth, Kids used to chant, "Watch the bunt." But I had teachers who believed in me, and they said I could do anything in America, and I believed them, and I still do. I want young people to have the chances I did. I want American families to have the chances this country gave my family. If we bring economic hope and prosperity to every neighborhood and community, for those left out, for those who have given up, for those who are cynical and barely hanging on, we can rebuild faith in our democratic project. Right now, let me just be blunt, we have too many elected officials who are completely oblivious and unprepared for what is coming. They may be good and adept at talking about the news of the day, but they lack a vision for what needs to be done for the future of this country. The people of the United States need real leadership and a government that understands what the future is. Economic renewal is our new national purpose. We can then build a cohesive, multiracial democracy where every American has dignity, independence, and security. America is desperate to be proud again. America wants to be a force for good again, for ourselves and for the world. With bold leadership and a new economic patriotism, we will take back this nation from the grips of extractive capitalism of an Epstein class and an American people who will build the future. Thank you very much.